It's live now.
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Traffic and Transportation Decision Meeting. I'm Councillor Lynn Stagg, Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation. We're meeting virtually in response to the limitations placed on governance by the COVID-19 pandemic. Previously, the law stated that all members had to be present in the room to make formal decisions at meetings. However, the law was amended in response to the COVID-19 emergency, and councils are able to hold public meetings virtually. This is in accordance with the local authorities, coronavirus flexibility of local authority meetings regulations 2020 number 392. Members of the public are invited to view this meeting, and there has been the opportunity for written representations to be submitted. Those present are requested to keep their microphones on mute and to only turn them on when they are called to speak. Members are requested to keep their cameras turned on at all times. Officers are requested to turn their cameras on only when they are presenting the reports or answering questions. If anyone would like to speak, please use the chat function and type in RTS, request to speak, so that they can then be called upon. I would now like to introduce those present, or I'll ask them to introduce themselves. So I'll start with the list that I've got in the order that I've got them in. Councillor Simon Bosher. You're on mute, Councillor Bosher. And can you say your name and then if you're present? I'll move on to Councillor Heaney and get back to you, and hopefully you might have been able to unmute yourself by then. Okay? Councillor Heaney.
I'm Councillor Graham Heaney. I'm the Labour Group spokesman on traffic and transportation. I'm present.
Councillor Scott Peter Harris. Councillor Scott Peter Harris, are you not here? Well, you can't answer if you're not here, are you? But I'm assuming that you have not answered, you're not here. So I'll go on to Councillor Horton.
Good afternoon, Councillor Susie Horton, present.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Vernon Jackson, not here, I don't think. So we'll move on. Councillor Stephen Pitt.
Thank you, Lynn. Councillor Steve Pitt, Central Southsea Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Bosher, I think you know.
Apologies, Lynn. I'm having awful connection problems, so I may disappear and come back. It's whatever. I could hear you, but I didn't even have Teams up on my laptop to be able to even unmute myself for some reason. But I'm here now. Councillor Simon Bosher, present.
Lovely, thank you. Anna, do we have any apologies?
I haven't heard of any, no.
Thank you. Oh, I'm assuming that the people who haven't answered, that's Councillor Scott Peter Harris, are not here at the moment, and Councillor Gerald Vernon Jackson, but if they do appear, they can let me know. So I'm recording to them then. Right, any declarations of interest from any of the councillors? Councillor Bosher? No? Councillor Heaney? No,
no declaration of interest, no.
Thank you. Councillor Horton? And Councillor Pitt? Okay.
None. No.
Right, we'll go on then to the first item on the agenda, which I think, Kevin, you're going to introduce, am I right?
Yes, Councillor Stack.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kevin McKee. I'm the parking team manager for Portsmouth City Council.
Thank you.
And item 3 on the agenda is the report into the consultation on a potential residence parking zone in the area identified as MH. There was an informal survey of the area in March 2020. 73% of the respondents thought an RPZ would be helpful, and so and 41% of those said problems were worse in the evening. And so we moved to a formal consultation on a proposed RPZ to operate between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Details of the proposal were sent to all households in the area. The formal consultation ran from the 24th of September to the 16th of October. All the responses received have been set out in Appendix B, so anyone reading the report can see the full range of views expressed. There is an officer analysis of those views on paragraph 5.2, where we've grouped them into those in favour and those who object to the scheme. And as a result of our analysis, we are recommending implementation of the scheme as proposed. And if that should be agreed, that we suggest a formal consultation in the roads listed in paragraph 2.2, which forms part of the MJ zone consultation, because those roads, when MJ were consulted, voted or expressed a view in favour of an RPZ. The rest of the MJ zone didn't. Thank you. I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, we have some deputations, I think, some written deputations. Are you going to read those out,
Okay.
Kevin? And there are two people for. That's Steve Brayley and Sean McCoon, and against Simon McNabb and Sarah Couch. And also Councillor Vernon Jackson wants to speak as well, but he isn't here at this moment in time. So if you'd like to go ahead with those.
Thank you. Yeah. Stephen Brady's representation was agreed with the need for residence parking zone. So I agree with the need for residence parking zone times, but the proposed times will not help anyone who has to work to get a space for parking their cars. A start time of 6 p.m. is too late, as most people get home between 5 and 6. If the time limits remain 6 to 8, there will be nowhere to park, and it would mean going back out after 6 to then find somewhere to park. Please consider the time frame for this enforcement. That's Stephen Brayley. The next one is from Shane McCoon. I'm a resident of Landguard Road, one of the streets being considered for a parking permit, and would like to share my views on the proposal. My husband and I moved into the area in July 2019, and we have struggled with the parking situation ever since. We own one car and a motorbike, but are often unable to find a parking space on our street. This problem got considerably worse at the end of last year when permits were introduced on other nearby streets, and the cars simply moved in to park in our area. I'm a secondary school teacher and have continued to go to work over the last few months. If I don't get home by around 4 p.m, then I'm unable to park in our street. If I get home later than 5:30, I can't find a space at all and spend ages trawling around and around the streets trying to find somewhere to park. I then have to walk for 10 minutes or so to find to my car when I want to leave early in the morning. People are forced to park on double lines, making it almost impossible to turn into some streets due to the lack of space, and people get irritated and angry with each other. In the evenings and at weekends, we are constantly evaluating whether we should go out in the car, as we may be unable to get a space when we return. I help provide food for the homeless community on a Sunday night, but again, when I come back from this, I'm unable to find somewhere to park. We hope that you will uphold the wishes of the majority of the street for parking permits. I appreciate the opportunity to share my views on this matter. So the next deputation is from Simon McNabb. I'm writing to object to this zone and to the consultation itself. Whilst I am generally in favour of an RPZ. There are details in the proposal which make it unacceptable and some clarifications are required. There is no indication that the reasons behind the objections have been thoroughly considered or mitigated against. The nature of the objections is not mentioned in the body of the report, so it is easy to assume incorrectly that they have been properly considered and mitigated against where possible. I urge those present at this meeting to thoroughly review all the objections and investigate possible mitigations rather than simply accepting the report. Regarding the boundary roads, assuming that all residents on the east side of Winter Road who are currently eligible for ME zone permits will be better served by having the MH zone imposed is incorrect. I have already provided evidence to this effect. The impact will vary depending on their location in Winter Road, and the MH zone could result in these residents being compelled to park further away from their homes than is currently the case. The situation for Winter Road needs to be revisited. I will remind those present that the council the council has a statutory obligation to consider any objections received, in brackets see paragraph 8.4, although comments are invited from everyone to enable suitable recommendations to be made. Therefore, consideration is given to how people respond in their representation. This is a quote from the report. The report states it recognises that no parking scheme will satisfy the individual requirements of everybody living, working or visiting the area. However, this should not be used as an excuse to force through proposals in their current form. If 584 of the 1,038 responded to the informal survey and only 200 of those further responded to the consultation and only 129 of those were in favour, it is possible to say that the majority of residents actually want the zone, even if this might be true. I don't believe that either the MH or MJ zone residents were consulted about the merger of these zones. This represents a significant change to the proposals, and if I'm correct, a new consultation is surely required. It appears that permits will not guarantee that residents will be able to park in the zone. Without this guarantee, I would argue that this simply becomes a tax, which cannot deliver the intended benefit. The consultation does not give a breakdown of the expected income from permits or details of how it will be spent, what happens to any possible surplus, etc. So it is not possible to determine if this will deliver value for money. It is possible to do this by checking registration records. A detailed estimate is required for this to be approved. We have not been presented with any evidence apart from guesswork based on 9-year-old data to tell us how many vehicles will be removed from the zone. Commercial vehicles displaced parking from other zones, football parking, close brackets. So we are simply playing a hunch. Without detailed analysis of the current on-the-ground data, there is no guarantee that this zone will have any benefit at all. This analysis is required if we are to be confident that the proposed zone will have the desired effects. The issue of match day parking has not been addressed at all. This was raised by many residents, and I do not see how the proposed operating times address this. Daytime match day visitors are effectively prohibited by the operation of the hours in ME zone, but not in the MH zone. There is no trial period. It doesn't matter if there hasn't been a trial before. We are playing a hunch here, and it could well be counterproductive. A trial period allows us to find out how well this does or doesn't work in practice. Changes can then be made based on real world experience to make it work better or even abandon the idea. I do not recall being informed how future price rises for permits will be managed. Without an upfront process locked in place, we are giving PCC permission to increase charges in any way they see fit in the future. We remain in the grip of a pandemic, which will be with us for many months to come. There is a significant change ongoing. Self-isolation, increased working from home, furloughs, job losses, a possible need for more visitors for the elderly and infirm. This must surely impact on people's views on parking zone, in brackets, possibly increasing the number in favour, a different approach to visitors, who knows what else. Is this the right time to be imposing the proposed zone? The next deputation is from Sarah Couch, who says, to whom it may concern, I would like to put forward my objections to the recommendations in the report relating to the RPZ for Westfield Road, in brackets MH. I would like to add first that I am very disappointed that residents were given false information when the ME permits were being proposed. Both myself and various other neighbours were led to believe that residents of Winter Road would be able to park in both the ME and MH zones due to being on a boundary. This does not now appear to be the case. I was informed of this by Councillor Lynn Stagg below, and my immediate neighbours were informed by the engineering department, I believe. You will also see from various responses to the MH consultation that others were also told this. We were also told that not being eligible for ME was only an initial. Sorry, we were also not told that being eligible for ME was only an interim measure. There's a quote from an email in quote marks. However, the area to the west of Winter Road will be surveyed as soon as possible, and if a majority of residents support an RPZ, then, underlined, you will be able to park on either side of Winter Road in either RPZ. I hope this reassures you. Best wishes, Lynn. Close quotes. As residents of Winter Road, in brackets, Southend, Devonshire Avenue to Highland Road, we are presently entitled to the ME permit. You have already admitted that there is a lack of parking on the east side of Winter Road, yet you want to force all residents of east side of Winter Road to park in an already congested proposed MH zone. I cannot see the logic of this. We have rightfully been entitled to an ME permit since February. This has worked well, and clearly if the numbers of the ME zone can take the residents of Winter Road parking in that zone, why are you changing it? What makes matters even worse is that you are also cutting the road in half, putting the west side of Winter Road in ME and the east side in MH. This means where I live, I cannot park directly outside my house as there are double yellow lines. If there is parking space opposite my house, when I return from work, I will not be able to park there, even though it is still Winter Road, as it will be in the ME zone. This is utterly ridiculous. If, as you say in your report, see 6.10.2 below, that there is a lack of parking on the east side of Winter Road, why can't the whole of Winter Road be either in ME or MH? It would make more sense. I actually feel that the residents of the east side of Winter Road are being particularly disadvantaged by the proposals through no fault of their own. I totally understand that permits are the way forward, however it has to be fair. It is not fair on us living in Winter Road, especially on the east side. At the present time, I always find a space when I return home in Aston Road, in brackets ME zone. I've always parked in Aston Road. For the last 30 years, I have lived in Winter Road, and I'm extremely annoyed that I'm being forced to park elsewhere, further away from my home than I need to. If all the east side of Winter Road are now to park down Westfield Road, Maxwell Road, Hunter Road, etc., that will make parking in those roads even worse. The next bit quotes section 6.10.3 of the report. There is and the first sentence is underlined, there is very little parking on the east side of Winter Road due to existing restrictions and its nature as a main road. Properties on both sides of Winter Road were allowed permit eligibility for the ME zone when it became operational earlier this year. This was an interim measure to mitigate the effects of displaced parking to the east of Winter Road, as the side roads provide the nearest unrestricted parking. Now that MH parking zone has been proposed, the parking bays and permit eligibility include the east side of Winter Road. Back to the main text of the letter. I also note that Devonshire Avenue, C6104 below, will share a boundary with MH and MI, but they are not offering the luxury of being cut in two. So why cannot the same apply for Winter Road?
Can I interrupt there and say that we've gone over the 6 minutes?
Okay.
The deputation. I think we've got the gist of it. Councillor Vernon-Jackson, as you have appeared, can you confirm that you are Councillor Vernon-Jackson, that you are present?
I really am. And some lights so you can see who he is. Yes, I really am. And my apologies for being late.
No, so I think that's the last of the written deputations, isn't it, Kevin, on this particular one?
For this report, yes.
Yes. Councillor Vernon-Jackson, would you like to do your deputation now?
Yes. It's just very short. It's really to say thank you to Nikki and Kevin for having done all the work on this. I think it's clear from the informal consultations and from the TRA consultations that people both in MH and MI would like to have a parking zone. A bit of an apology from us as Milton team councillors. With the MH, we did a note to people to remind them to fill in the form and get it back. For MI, because of lockdown and things, we didn't, and we can see the number of people who did reply was reduced. So my apologies for that, but I think people in both zones, in the informal and in the TRO consultation, have said they want these zones to come in, and I'm happy to support the words in the report.
Thank you, Gerald.
And Lynn, my apology. There's also a meeting about Aquins at exactly the same time now, and that's
finished, Gerald.
Oh, that's finished. Okay, my apologies then. I was going to run off to that as well, but I will stay with you.
Thank you. I hope I can shut my dog up a bit more. Nikki, could you address some of the issues that were brought up in those deputations? Things that came to that I pointed, I noted particularly was the timing, and also the ability to park on inability to park on both sides of Winter Road. Which, when I said that, that was because at that time they could park on each side, didn't they? But when there was only MD, was it MD was introduced?
Yeah.
Yeah. So could you address some of those points?
Yeah, I mean, I can start with Winter Road. I know people seem to be surprised it was an interim measure, but when you approved the introduction of the ME zone, there's no residence parking bays in Winter Road itself, but we allowed all properties to apply for ME permits. And I said there's no residence parking bays there. So when we've proposed the MH zone to the east, those people who live on the east side of Winter Road can use their parking bays there under MH, and the people who live on the west side of Winter Road can use their parking bays under ME. There's very little parking on Winter Road. There's a lot of double lines because it's a main road, and we've made some adjustments, so any single yellow lines that allow for off-peak parking are unchanged, so people can use those in the evenings, and there's a number of limited waiting bays in place that cease operating at 6 p.m. that people can continue to use. It's really about trying to distribute the demand for parking more fairly. So if you're on the east side, you want to use the parking on the side roads there and the bays in front of your house. So if we'd, made them ME, then you wouldn't be able to use that space which would be MH. Devonshire Avenue is a bit different. In fact, it's a lot different because there's a lot of parking on both sides of the road. So people do park on both sides of the road. If you've got parking outside your house on Winter Road and double lines opposite, you need to be able to use that, and that's why we've proposed the way we have. And obviously the council's proposal was well published. We've sent the notice to every household. It's on the website. The notices were displayed on streets, and I think it's actually right to say that we can't design a scheme that everyone's going to be happy with. Everyone has their own places they prefer to park, and I think the fact we've only got sort of 3, maybe 4 who'd like us to change it, I don't think now is the time to change it. That hence the recommendations. What else do we have?
Now, as chosen, quite a few people were not happy. What were the reasons for using those hours?
Yeah, I think that one of the deputations said that none of the objections had been considered in the report. The whole purpose of the report is to report on the consultation, and it deals with the aspects that people have objected to. So the reasons that people feel that there's a parking issue and they would like residents parking are set out in paragraphs 5.3, and there's quite a few things there. Households have too many cars, displaced parking, commercial vehicles. And in 5.4, what we've done is we've pulled out the most common points that people raised during the consultation, which are the operating times, the cost of permits, and the boundary roads. And so the majority of this report focuses on those. What do we see? So I think someone said that 6 p.m. is too late for the parking zone to start. Well, 41% of people wanted the parking zone to deal with evening and overnight issues. So that's why we've proposed it for that time, and also looking at the area and the amount of zones we've got that overlap, 6 to 8 satisfies the majority of those requests. But obviously it means that vehicles can't be left for long periods of time. It's not necessarily a case that everyone has to move their vehicles suddenly for 6 o'clock. As we know, in these areas, people that park there that aren't entitled to at the moment wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't be able to leave their cars for weeks and months on end, and so you're more likely then to be able to park between 6 and 8, but also at other times as well. And there's if you look at the reasons people feel cause the parking problems, obviously without those being able to park in the zone, more space would be created. The displacement was something that happened straight away. When the ME zone was introduced, we had a lot of emails and complaints from people in MH, what is now MH, to say that people were parking their cars, walking across Winter Road to park in those zones. Obviously, if the MH zone is introduced, they won't be able to do that anymore, which will free up space. It's not a case of us providing evidence for a parking zone or trying to influence people. We really are responding to what people are telling us. So it's not a case of finding how many spaces there are and vehicles. It's what people are telling us. And I think we heard in the deputation from the school teacher, it's very difficult to park because of non-residents. And that's obviously what we're aiming to achieve. I think overall, obviously we can't please everybody, but the aim of this is to achieve the best outcome for the most amount of people. One of the deputations mentioned that people in the MJ area haven't been consulted on merging MH and MJ. No, that's correct, they haven't. The recommendation is that we propose to extend the MH zone if it's approved today. And as Kevin said, that would require formal consultation via TRO. I think someone also said that there was no finance comments, or there was no estimate of how much it would cost and how much income, but that is included in the finance comments in the report, and there's a number of paragraphs in there on the cost of permits and estimated income. The issue of match day parking, obviously we all know that that can be a very emotive subject. Lots of people are concerned about parking on match days. It's not something, so looking at paragraph 5.3 again, we've put those factors that contribute to parking problems in the order they're most highlighted, and actually football match parking is second from bottom, because I think people realise it's not a daily occurrence, and we always tell people we don't install parking zones for events that happen once or twice a fortnight on seasons, and I think if we did solely introduce a parking zone, it would be extremely difficult to enforce, because we don't necessarily want enforcement staff in direct conflict with supporters at those times. So then we need a parking zone that's going to work for the number of reasons that were given by people, and it's going to address as many of those issues as possible, and not just one.
Yeah, that's just sad there. I mean, I lived in Greyshot Road. I know it's not in MH, but it's very close for 20 years. And it was a problem on match days. So if I went out on a Saturday, I made sure I didn't return until about 5:15, when all the match day parking had gone. So
it is. I mean, I used to live in Fratton, which is it's right next to the stadium, and it's got a 2-hour free parking, so supporters can park there. It can. I think the 2-hour thing it definitely acts as a deterrent, and if it's if they're a bit further south of the stadium in MH, but they obviously won't be leaving their cars after 6 o'clock.
can you just mention, so although nobody has said it in the deputations, it's common belief that we make huge profits from this, and it's called a stealth tax. Where exactly does any money in profit go? Kevin, you probably
I don't think Wayne's here, so the money has to be ring fenced. Any surplus from any on-street parking has to be ring fenced, and it needs to be put to specific purposes: environmental improvements, public transportation, paying for parking elsewhere. There's a list of, so the council isn't free to use it in any way it chooses, but it is ring fenced.
And it's all got to be transport related?
Yes.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I think that covers all the things that I picked out, unless you've got anything else, Nikki?
No, I think that was everything.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Heaney, have you got any questions or any comments?
Yes, thank you. I was just about to type RTS in, and you got to me before I finished it. So yes, I mean, I don't have a lot of detailed comments on the zone as proposed, but I do have some concerns about the recommendation, which is 221. It's the one that talks about extending the zone into the MI area. What would be the third MI area? Sorry, the MJ area. I mean, I see I can see a logic for why that might be done, but I think it's problematic for a number of reasons. We originally set up a consultation on the zones on the basis that we have a defined area, which is presumably seen as a logical area for a parking zone. And we say we're going to survey residents about that. And then we ask for an informal survey, and then we base the results of whether we go further on the results of that informal survey. Now, the overall result of that informal survey was that the residents were opposed to the zone. However, the proposal now is to go and consult on part of that zone. And we seem to be establishing, or the cabinet member seems to be establishing, a new principle, which is that if residents say, no, they don't want a zone, we're then going to look at areas of that consultation and then take out those roads that said yes and try and introduce a parking zone into those areas anyway, even though the majority of residents have said no. And I think it's not a good principle, really, because a lot of the residents who are in the area, particularly the area outside of the roads west, east of Minstead Road, will not know that that decision has been made, and will be unaware that they are about to have the possibility of a zone being introduced into there, because they won't be part of any consultation. And I do think that's problematic. And I think it undermines confidence in the way in which we do these things. And if you look at the roads that have been consulted on, even the roads that apparently say they are in favour, like Fordingbridge Road and Ringwood Road, both of those roads have turnouts of something like, was it 25% and 39%, and the numbers are quite small. 17 in favour, 12 against. On Ringwood Road, it's 18 in favour and 15 against. I mean, it's pretty narrow there. And if you look at Henderson Road, I mean, it looks like there's more people in Henderson Road who are opposed. Although, if I read the diagram correctly, you might be suggesting that there are more people at the western end that are in favour than are at the eastern end. But again, I think the problem we've got is that this really is setting a completely new precedent, that if you consult on an area, you're now going to slice and dice it so that you then include residents who said yes. And the people outside will not have any knowledge of that. I think that's problematic, and I don't think we should do that. I think we should consult the area. Then if we want to see what's going to happen, then that's fine. But we don't start slicing and dicing areas in that way. I think the other thing that's important is Nikki very kindly sent me a copy of the survey that went out. And one of the things that I think that comes out of that is that we don't actually inform residents in total about the results of the consultation. They're directed to the website, which gives them the broad sort of pie chart of where we are. And I think one of the things we should do, I think we have a responsibility to, if people actually do respond to a survey and an area is asked for a survey, we should actually tell them. One of the complaints I've had quite frequently, both when I wasn't on the council and when I was, is that when people take part in consultations or consultations happen, people don't actually hear back what actually happens. And that's particularly true in relation to this, because the residence parking zone is very important. It will have an impact on everyone who's in it. And I think we have a duty, a responsibility to tell everyone what the outcome of an initial survey is. So we should tell them. And I think we should certainly tell the residents who are going to be east of Minstead Road that we're now going to reconsult the area west of that in order to see a possible parking zone, because they may have some views on it. And, I think it will have an impact. So I'm concerned about the principle that you're establishing here.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Yes, I understand that. Nikki, have you got any response to that?
Yeah, I do. Only because I've been doing this for far too long. And we already have a precedent, and it's quite common when we informally survey an area, we're gathering information from people. And in the past, we have then proposed a parking zone in a smaller part of that area. And in this case, it's fairly obvious that most of the support in MJ was from the Western End. And that recommendation is also based on the consultation response to MH, in that a lot of people on Eastney Road, which might be surprising, but they actually use these roads for parking. And because there's off-road parking in that area, the demand for street parking is less. And there's also the area alongside the park. And so it made sense, instead of proposing an MJ area, to extend MH if that's approved. And all that is at this stage is a recommendation, and that would require full consultation. And then everyone in that area would be advised of that consultation and invited to take part. I think it's important to say that. So yeah, we don't automatically advise people of survey results. They are told they'll be published on the website. Tallulah, who's not here today, is very good at putting those up quickly because people ask about them. So usually within a few weeks she's put them there. So the recommendation here isn't to extend it, but it is to consult. So we're going to propose that if the recommendation is accepted, and then everyone in that area will have an opportunity to respond. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Kevin, anything else to add?
No, only to say that we were talking about football earlier, and that obviously the hours proposed would help with evening games, although they obviously don't cover Saturday match days. So there would be some help.
Thank you. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stagg. I don't know whether you can see me. I can't see anything, just a green screen at the moment, but hopefully you're receiving me.
We can see you.
Yep, we can see you.
Oh, that's ominous. Apologies. I just have some general concerns that I have with all of these sorts of things that have actually come in. The fact that it's come in quite piecemeal. Looking at these figures, I mean, I know the leader was talking about the majority of people wanting it, but by my reckoning of the 200 odd people that responded, there was only sort of 6% in favour of actually going down this particular route for the number of properties that are actually in the area, which I find a little bit questionable. I would also agree with what Councillor Heaney has actually been saying with regards to the somewhat scattergun approach when it comes to what we are including and what we aren't including, because as that displacement moves further to the east, you're going to end up with the situation. Apologies, I don't know who that was.
My dog.
All right, okay. Obviously in agreement with me. You're going to end up with those people coming back and saying, can we be surveyed again, which is going to put your programme into a complete mess. The other bit that I find somewhat concerning, which is on a little bit is a bit of a wider principle, and that's in 9.2 of the report under Director of Finance's comments. And it says there, the amount of income generated from PCNs is dependent on the amount of enforcement the council invests in the zone and the levels of contravention that actually occur. My concern sort of centres around a little bit around the level of enforcement, because clearly people that are paying for their residence parking permits expect a level of enforcement because they consider they're paying for it, and therefore that will be right and proper. But it comes down to, do we actually physically have the manpower with all of these zones with varying times now going in to actually enforce the rest of the city when it comes to parking issues from a point of view of safety, as opposed to cars that are safely parked but are in contravention of the fact that they haven't paid for a permit. And really, I think that the time has come for some sort of report to come to your cabinet as to the level of enforcement that is going on in the rest of the city when it comes down to the safety aspect of it. Because I wouldn't like to see a situation where we have traffic wardens that are patrolling residents' parking zones, effectively looking for vehicles that are in contravention they can put tickets on, but in other areas of the city are not seeing similar levels of enforcement when it comes to dangerous parking, and you become reliant on residents reporting that through the My Portsmouth app and hopefully actually getting a response in the view of a traffic warden, particularly those, and I'll beat the same drum, off the island in Cosham, Drayton, Farlington and Paulsgrove, etc., who are a very long way away generally from the bulk of these particular zones, and perhaps do not necessarily enjoy the level of safety enforcement that perhaps they should do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowsher. Any other comments from anybody? No? Okay. I take on board some of the comments that have made, and we are going, I'm in favour of the recommendations for MH. I think MI is a difficult one. There's a very clear geographical divide, and I think ward councillors will confirm that the people to the east, a lot of them have off-road parking, and that is one of the reasons why they didn't want residence parking, which is understandable, whereas people to the west didn't. But we are going to consult with them anyway if I approve, and I will approve the implementation of MH, because I know the numbers aren't high. When I was cabinet member before, I said we needed to have 51% of the residents responding, and 51% of those in favour before it goes ahead. And it just didn't work in any single area, because the vast majority of people, it's the people who are desperately in need of parking who respond, and those who are desperately against it who also respond. And a lot of people in the middle for whom it doesn't necessarily apply too much. Those people who maybe don't leave their roads. I mean, in my road, for example, there are a lot of older people, a lot of people who are not working, so their cars are around. They don't have the problem of sort of going out and then coming back and finding nowhere to park. So I think it's different reasons for different people. So it's not going to work if you demand a higher percentage. I would love to see a higher percentage, because then I would know that people are far more engaged in it. But that isn't the case, and it hasn't been so far. But I certainly approve MH, so I would accept the recommendations for that. And for MI, we are going to consult with that section, the western section. Are we not, Kevin?
And the MJ area, yes.
Okay.
Recommendation 2.2.
Yes. And we will consult with that, because I think that is right. That that is the path that is very obviously on the map. The area that is in favour for the most part. So I think yes. So I would recommend that as well. And I think that the final bit on that was about Devonshire Avenue. We've lost the actual that at the moment.
Councillor Stagg?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, that was just to confirm that residents would be able to park on both sides of Devonshire Avenue. A lot of the objections they highlighted, they were very concerned that they wouldn't be able to park on the other side, and that's not the case. So they're not technically objections, but obviously we've included them. But I just wanted that to be noted, and that Pedham Close is a private road, and the proposals don't affect that status, just for noting.
Can we move on to, is it item number 5 now? Because 4 we've already covered, I think. Have we not?
No, item 4 is MI, which was a separate consultation. Shall I introduce the MI? Yeah, item 4 is about the consultation in the area of MI. Similar to MH, an informal consultation was carried out in March 2020. The response was 80% of the people who responded felt that an RPZ would be helpful. 36% said the main problems were in the evening. So an RPZ was proposed. The proposed times were 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Again, letters detailing the proposals were sent to all properties in the area, and in the report we've set out all the comments that we received back in Appendix B. Paragraph 5.2 is an officer analysis of those comments, and having considered all the representations, our recommendation, particularly having considered all the comments, and the fact that the informal survey was strongly in favour, there is a small majority of the residents in the area who are in favour, but even those who are listed as opposed recognise the benefits of an RPZ, and as we set out in paragraph 6.1 to 6.5, RPZs provide other benefits generally. So our recommendation is to implement the MI zone as advertised. That if the appropriate restrictions are proposed on the north side of Goldsmith Avenue, outside the boundary of MI, if problems arise. And third recommendation is that it's noted that residents of Devonshire Avenue will continue to be able to park on either side of their road, and that this is enabled by signage, despite that both sides being in different zones. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there are some deputations as well, some deputations, aren't there? Are you going to read those out, Kevin?
Yeah, sorry, my camera's gone off.
Yeah.
The first deputation is from Catherine Isaac. Thank you for the information about the MI permit decision meeting on Thursday regarding recommendations 2.2 and paragraph 684 with respect to the priority for residents extending to the north of Goldsmith Avenue, adjacent to the park, due to double yellow lines on the south side eastward from the signage. It is not clear whether proposals for these recommendations will be included in the current MI permit proposals, so I'd like to put forward the following proposals to be considered. 1. To include north side of Goldsmith Avenue from Winter Road eastwards to give priority over parking to properties where there are double yellow lines on the south side, in brackets, odd numbers 105 to 83. And 2. MI permit holders stroke waiting limited to 3 hours, 8 a.m, 8 p.m, for the above inclusion to allow for park users and stay in line with other areas within the MI current proposals where public access is required. I'm not in favour of the MI Middlesex Road area parking zone proposed under TRO 17/2020 being implemented as advertised, as I feel it does not benefit the residents of Goldsmith Avenue, with the proposed boundary to the south side of Goldsmith Avenue only. However, had the north side of Goldsmith Avenue been included, I would have been in favour. The next deputation is from Richard Keir. I would like to raise a further disposition regarding the receipt of the report. Following the receipt of the report, I do not feel that the democratic process is being sufficiently followed here in relation to the decision to proceed with 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. permit time, and your report provides little information on this matter, despite there being a substantial number of objections to these times. If you look at each of the emails you received, there is very little support for 5:30 p.m, 7:30 p.m. slot you have chosen. It appears that there is a significant amount of information in those emails which is being ignored, including the high number that suggests that the proposed times do not address the issue of football parking, the after-school clubs and general school parking later in the day for the full day. Many people also raise concerns about the 5:30 p.m. start not impacting on shop workers and others working locally that will still be able to take up residents' parking space all day, and there still be there when the demand is at its highest, which you've already conceded commences at 4:30 p.m. in the ME report. The MI report shows that only those in favour overall and those who objected overall to the permit scheme, rather than giving an overview of those who have objected to specifics. You have again chosen to reflect the football as a low-level issue, which is mentioned frequently in the included emails from residents who still not be able to take their cars out on a Saturday during home games. The ME report identifies a number of key issues which do not appear in the MI report, and given the close proximity of the zones and similar problems each zone faces, I am very surprised. Item 5.5 of the ME report indicates that football match traffic and parking was highlighted by residents as one of the main concerns for parking congestion in the area, which is normally on a Saturday afternoon. I would suggest evening kickoffs are not such an issue as they're not very frequent. Item 6.3 of the ME report states that the time slot 4:30 to 6:30 aims to make it easier to find parking space when demand for parking is highest, in this case when the majority of residents return from work, is noted in the ME report, but it fails to be mentioned in the MI report, despite us being almost exactly the same local issues, with the exception of school parking. Item 6.5.1 of the ME report states that the recommendation to proceed with the ME parking zone 4:30 to 6:30 is made on the basis that the hours proposed will increase residents' chances of finding a parking space when the demand for parking is highest. Why would MI not have the same demand? Given that we face the same problems as the ME zone, it strongly suggests that the MI zone should be allocated the same as the ME zone of 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. It is a residence parking scheme which will be paid for by residents, so it is the residents that should have the final say, not school staff or the shopkeepers, who can adjust their hours to suit the 4:30 to 6:30 restrictions or park elsewhere, especially whilst supporting the scheme. 44 responses appear to have some issue with the timing or other factors. You have not provided residents in MI zone with sufficient evidence that the timing for the parking restriction is beneficial and appropriate. You have only provided evidence of there being 80% that agreed with the scheme in general. Many residents have asked for the timings and other issues to be taken into account, and there is no evidence of this being listened to. I would welcome any opportunity to discuss these matters, as I feel that there are those who may be new to the area and who have just emailed support for the scheme may not appreciate the impact of the times they have chosen. I've copied in the Liberal Democrat councillor who represents this area, and I would hope he will look into this further to ensure that residents' concerns are addressed before the signs are ordered and put up, unless you have already ordered the signs, of course. The next deputation is from Percy Critchlet. I'm afraid I'm not happy to support your current proposals, which state that residents on the east side of Winter Road will have to park in the MI zone, since at present time I park in the ME zone on the west side of Winter Road. First, I would like to address your comments regarding crossing Winter Road to get to said ME parking zone on the west side, which I park. The section of Winter Road on the east side stretches from Devonshire Avenue to Goldsmiths Avenue. In this section of Winter Road, the west side is populated completely with shops, and so when my wife and I do shopping at the Co-op or other shops, we have to cross the road to do so. As a result of this, I spend most of my time on the west side of Winter Road and cross the road numerous times. Thus, it is no trouble whatsoever to park across the road in the ME zone from which I have a permit. When the ME zone came into operation on the west side of Winter Road, I was told by Councillor Gerald Vernon Jackson that I could choose to park on either side of the road, either side because of the yellow lines in Winter Road. I chose to park in the ME zone because Hayshop Road, in which I usually park, is directly opposite our house, and I can normally park there with no trouble, quite close to our house, just across the road. Since my wife and I are elderly, this is a distinct advantage to both of us. This is directly relevant since the side roads on the east side of Winter Road are usually full of cars, and to park on the east side would mean parking large distances from our house. The main criteria generally, it would seem, for residents parking is the freedom to park down the road in which residents live. When this criteria cannot be met due to yellow lines down the main road, for example, and the residents cannot then park in the road in which they live, surely it is felt the unfortunate residents should be given freedom to choose which zone on either side of the main road they wish to park in to minimise their inconvenience. When I sought advice from Councillor Gerald Vernon Jackson concerning the situation, he advised me that I could choose to park in the side roads on either side of Winter Road. In fact, at present, I can actually park on the west side of Winter Road between 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning. Surely this is a reason for allowing me to continue to park in the ME zone. It is felt that the residents of Winter Road in the section in which I live with the shops on the west side should be allowed to choose a zone on either side of the main road according to their freedom of choice, as it is proposed that residents in Devonshire Avenue will be allowed to do so. Living on the east side of Winter Road, it would seem that without doubt, the residents living in the section of Winter Road in which I live, with the shops on the west side, should not be penalised still further because they have yellow lines down their road with limited parking facilities. Because of these yellow lines, the choice to park down their own road has been taken away from them. Thus, it would seem they should be given the choice to park in the side roads on either side of Winter Road, as Councillor Vernon Jackson advised me. It would seem this is the best reason for allowing residents of Winter Road to park in the zone of their choice on either side of Winter Road. Unlike Winter Road, it is proposed that residents living in Devonshire Avenue will still be able to enjoy parking facilities on both sides of the road they live in, even though it will be in two different zones. In addition to this convenience, they will be given an extra bonus of being able to choose to park in the zones on either side of Devonshire Avenue as well. I feel that Winter Road should be given the same choice also. It would seem the criteria used to support this contrasting state of affairs is wrong and totally unfair, and I respectfully request again that I can be allowed to continue to park and retain my permit for the ME zone. With best regards. And those are the deputations.
Thank you, Kevin. Nikki, can you make some comments? Sorry? I don't know what happened there. Nikki, can you make some comments? Can you explain why Devonshire Avenue is different from Winter Road?
It's actually an extremely different road in its very nature. Devonshire Avenue's got parking on both sides of the road and a lot of it, which the residents share. And Winter Road is majority double yellow lines. I think I don't want to repeat what I said earlier, because I know I went on a little bit. If you're on the east side of Winter Road, you want to be able to use those parking bays. There are no residence parking bays in Winter Road at the moment, so those proposed to be in the MI zone, MH zone, would be on the east side. The section of Winter Road included in MI, there's no parking at all. There's no on-street parking there, and generally people want to park in the roads up the side roads that they back onto. I think we need to go back to the point again. Obviously, we made everyone aware of the proposal. It was well publicised. We sent a copy of the proposal notice to every household. It's published on our website and on street notices. The report indicates exactly how many notices were displayed. And we've got 2 people that would prefer to stay in ME. And as much as we'd like to, we just can't accommodate everyone's preferences. And we can't legally, nobody can choose which parking zone to be in. You don't have a choice. Your vehicle is registered at an address within a zone, so no one in Devonshire Avenue can choose their zone either. They be in M or MH or MI, but the parking bays are proposed to be shared on Devonshire Avenue, so they can use either side of the road, not either zone. And again, in Winter Road, so any bays that have got your permit identifier when it can be used, the lengths of single year line that allow parking off-peak are still available for use, and the limited waiting bays that are present outside the shops are unchanged, and there'll be free parking there after 6.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm sorry to make you repeat it, but I just wanted to get the message out to people, anybody who's listening, that there are reasons for this. It's not just arbitrary. No,
I know we'd all like to accommodate what everyone likes to park, but unfortunately it's just not feasible in every case.
Well, no, and simply because there are too many vehicles for the parking spaces available anyway, so that makes it extra difficult. Councillor Heaney, have you got any comments or questions?
Well, I suppose, just following up on that conversation we've had, I thought we had decided that there would be a possibility of having fuzzy boundaries, the ability for people to park on particular parts of roads where there is a boundary of 2 parking zones. So we're not saying people choose the zone, we're just saying the cars can park it past the road. And I'm wondering, given the nature of Winter Road, what thought has been given to how realistic that might be, and whether any parking bays in adjacent roads could have been identified as possible areas for shared parking. My first question.
Nikki, have you got an answer to that?
I have, in that yes, we did look at it, but there's so few parking spaces on Winter Road that to make them available for people that have got double lines outside as well, it's not really sharing it. It's then if you live in a house and you've got the parking outside, you wouldn't necessarily want someone who hasn't got any parking to be able to use that space as well, and then we would be, basically oversubscribing them. So if you made what limited parking there is on Winter Road available for ME and MH permit holders, which is your shared bays, we're not distributing the parking availability fairly. And so if you've got a house and you want to be able to park with parking outside, should you be expected to accommodate all the vehicles from houses that don't have parking available? Whereas Devonshire Avenue is our first shared boundary. There are shared bays there because the majority of Devonshire Avenue has on-street parking.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Heaney?
Sorry, did you mean majority of Devonshire Avenue has off-street parking rather than on-street parking?
No.
Most of it is unrestricted. Yeah.
Very few double and yellow lines.
I suppose the only other concern I have is that, well, Kevin said it's a majority of one in favour. So I understand that it might be to do with COVID that people haven't responded, but I'm really surprised. This is the one where I've seen a narrow majority. I'm just wondering if it would have been a majority of one against, whether we'd be actually saying no to this.
Yes, well, I certainly would. I've always gone along with, the majority, whatever it may be. I may think it's not right, but, for whatever reasons, but no, I think you have to. But don't forget, all of these can be reviewed anyway after a year. There's no reason why that can't, and if people are having particular problems, they need to be reviewed, and that is absolutely fair.
Can I come in on that? Sorry. I know we like to put figures in these reports, but where it says object support, it doesn't mean I don't want a parking zone, I do want a parking zone. We object to aspects of our proposals, doesn't necessarily mean they don't want something. That's a bit clearer. Also, we had a very good response to the informal survey, and obviously a lot of people were in favour of parking. We then introduced the ME zone, and we had a lot of emails and complaints that people couldn't park due to displaced parking. And then we proposed a parking zone, and for many people, that's what they expected us to do. It's not a vote. You don't say yes I do, no I don't. It's a chance for people to put their views across. And although they may not say yet again that they want a parking zone, they'll let us know if there are aspects of our proposals they don't like or they'd like to see something different. It's not a yes-no scenario.
Thank you, Nikki.
That's interesting because obviously if there had been a majority against on the figures, it wouldn't necessarily have therefore been right to say we won't introduce a parking zone, because as has been said, the objections might be around the timing rather than the actual need for it. So we may need a bit of a breakdown when we have these in the future about what ones are saying it's timing, not the principle, so it helps us with the figures.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't like including figures. We've tried to put in paragraph 5.2.1 that a resident might support permit parking, but if they object to the times, then we've put them down as objection. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want the zone at all. So I think you're right. We could probably make that a bit clearer. We do focus on the objections, and they all the results of the consultation inform our recommendations. So you're right, if we'd had a lot of objections and people said, I don't want this parking zone, I don't need it, the recommendations would have been very different.
Thank you. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stagg. I mean, I'm sort of coming back to the point that Councillor Heaney has just raised, because actually the figures show when you factor in the outside area one, it's actually 57-57, so there is no majority in one way or the other when it comes to to requiring this particular zone. I hear what Nikki Musson is saying, but you've always gone by the biggest figure. So you've always taken a black and white decision, even though we seem to be now arguing a shade of grey. And I would actually comment, we're using the words of one of the residents that has actually put in support for the MI zone. And to quote them, it says, "I am now forced to agree to the new parking MI zone arrangements as other surrounding parking zones use our area to park their vehicles to avoid restrictions in their own zone." Now, I infer, and this is my opinion, that resident may well not have been in support of this particular zone. The fact that we seem to have a piecemeal approach to what's going on here, they've now found themselves victim circumstance in a situation that they've already got. I mean, I guess that as we've got a number of other cabinet members in this particular meeting, you are probably going to make the decision to implement it. But I think long and hard about it, because in theory, you've got a 57-57, if you want to put it, a one-person majority with regards to this, and not all of them are actually supporting the Times. You're hanging this to a certain degree on the informal consultation, but it is effectively an informal consultation. Do people want a parking zone or not? And the moot answer to that from the general population is probably yes, we do. But it's the TRO that is the deciding factor, with the Times that go in against it. And really, it should be the TRO that we are making decisions on, rather than the informal survey. In any other scenario where there is a traffic regulation order, it is based on the consultation of what is actually going to be implemented, whether it's double yellow lines, disabled parking bays, or whatever else that makes the decision. So really, the informal survey should play no real part in the decision-making process. It should be based on the TRO that you have in front of you. And I would argue that when you've actually got a score draw, that you should err on the no, it shouldn't go in. And that's my view.
I think one of the things you're forgetting, Councillor Bosher, is that the only reason people want residence parking zones is because there are too many vehicles, the amount of parking spaces available. And it doesn't matter whether you have a residence parking zone next door or if you don't. If you've got too many vehicles in your area, you can't park. And we're forced into it. I mean, ideally, I would love to see no residence parking zones, that everybody had no more than one vehicle parked outside, but that's not reality, so we have to do something about it. And there is no perfect answer. If there was, we've done it.
Lynn, I actually quoted you word for word what was actually one of the comments that a resident put forward, in the fact that arguably they would not necessarily have been in favour. By inference of saying I am forced to agree would suggest that they are reluctant, in my view. And the fact that they are forced to agree is that we've had a swathe of residence parking zones introduced bit by bit by bit, gradually pushing displaced traffic across, to the fact this person probably a year ago did not have a particular parking issue, and a residence parking zone was not on their particular radar. But now it's been moved and moved and moved across the city towards where this person is. He or she is now faced with a fait accompli, because through no making of their own. So it's something that is actually within your report that I'm actually mentioning. So I do understand, and I'm not forgetting anything. It's in your report in front of you.
Yes, I appreciate that, and I understand. But the reason that they're being impacted is because there are too many vehicles in the area where those vehicles are registered, and it's simple and straightforward. We have now got, on average, 1.5 cars or vehicles per household in the city, compared with parking spaces. That's not sustainable. But as I've said before, we can review it after a year, and if it's not happy, if people are not happy with the timings, then that can be adjusted. Nikki.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight paragraph 6.6.2 and 3 of the report. Obviously, the survey that we carry out helps to inform the TRO, and 36% of people who responded to the informal survey said that problems occur mainly in the evenings. So obviously we've proposed 5:30 to 7:30, taking into account other zones. And that is what we're asking you to make a decision on, not the informal survey, but it does inform the TRO, if that makes sense. And 87% of those who responded to the formal consultation, the TRO consultation, gave varying preferences, and they do vary in that they should start earlier, start later, or extend for more 2 hours a day. And it comes back to a point I made earlier that we just can't accommodate what everybody wants and what everyone feels could work for them. We're really trying to produce the best outcome for the most amount of people.
Thank you, Nikki. Well, coming back to the recommendations, recommendation 1 is that the MI Middlesex Road area parking zone proposed is implemented as advertised, and I would agree with that. And I stress here that it needs to be reviewed in a year's time to make sure. And earlier, if that is the case, if there are a lot of objections to the timing.
Can I ask a question, Councillor Stagg, on that basis? Because that's obviously not that I can see as part of the recommendation is to actually review it. What impact is that going to have on the existing programme of residence parking zones if we're going to review both of the ones that you are agreeing today?
All the parking zones are reviewed. It's not specific to this particular one. We put a specific one for I think it was MD, wasn't it? That would specifically be reviewed within 6 months. But all of them are reviewed and right across the city. Sometimes it takes a bit longer depending on how pressurised the officers are.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, yeah, we tend to, I think Councillor Bosher means that we won't specifically send out a feedback survey as such, but we do look at the feedback we get. And quite often adjustments are made to these parking zones after they've gone in that you may not necessarily know about because if you don't live there. But yeah, it's feedback from residents, and if we can make any changes, then we do. I know this is highly irregular, but can I make a suggestion for recommendation 2.2 about Goldsmith Avenue?
Yes.
Obviously the recommendation is that appropriate parking restrictions are proposed for the north side of Goldsmith Avenue, outside of the MI zone boundary, to address specific issues. Could we remove should they arise? Because I think 6 people have raised the issue in this consultation, and I'm currently working on the extension to the GB zone, which takes it up to Priory Crescent, which is next to Goldsmith Avenue. Those residents have asked for a 3-hour limited wait adjacent to Milton Park to be included in their residence parking proposals. So instead of saying now we'll address the issue should they arise, could we change that so that we will address the issues and leave it at that?
Can we do that legally, Kevin?
Because we'll consult on a 3-hour limited wait for Priory Crescent, and we could do the same on the north side of Goldsmith Avenue in that same TRO.
If that is legally allowable, I'm quite happy with that. But I don't know if that is the case.
It's a recommendation, Lynn. You're more than welcome to change, accept, or reject the recommendations. It's entirely your decision.
Okay.
I mean, you're obviously alluding to what's happened in the past.
Yes.
All I would say to you is the bits that you cannot change are from bullet point 3 background onwards. The bits that are in point 2 recommendations, you are at will to either accept, reject, add, amend, do whatever you like to those bits. So you can do that if you choose to do so.
In that case, then I'm happy to do that, Nikki. All right. So that 2.2 should now read that appropriate parking restrictions as proposed for the north side of Goldsmith Avenue, outside of the MI zone boundary, to address specific issues.
Yes,
Full stop. Okay, lovely. And then the 2.3, it's noted under this proposal, residents of Devonshire Avenue would continue to be able to park on either side of their road as enabled by signage, despite each side being allocated to a different zone to the north and south, and for the reasons you've already given, because they are residential areas anyway. Okay, lovely, thank you very much. So now we go on to item number 4, I think, if I can find it. Who's going to introduce this? This is Rainbow Corner, isn't it?
Yep. Number 5, Clive Road.
Oh, is it? Okay, hang on.
Yeah.
I've lost. As Councillor Pitt and Councillor Horton are here just in deputations on Rainbow Corner, would you mind if we change the order and put in Rainbow Corner first and then Clive Road afterwards, so that they don't have to hang around?
Councillor Pitts had to go to another meeting, so he will no longer be doing a deputation.
Right, okay. Do you have any objections, Councillors Heaney and Bosher?
No, I'm very happy with that.
No, I'm fine. I'm here for the duration.
At least it's not a full council meeting. I'm hoping to be away before 12:10.
Don't even go there.
So I'm presenting both. So to clarify, you'd like to reverse agenda items 6 and 5.
Right with you,
Yeah,
Michelle, yes, please.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So
Councillor Horton.
okay, so we'll go ahead now and present agenda item 6, and then go back to agenda item 5 afterwards. Yeah. Okay. So the report is into the Rainbow Corner Day Nursery, which is situated on Victoria Road North, at the junction of the Block End Road, Outram Road. And the purpose of the report is to consider proposed road safety infrastructure to protect Rainbow Corner Day Nursery. The recommendation that this report brings to the committee meeting is that the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation approves the implementation of road safety infrastructure on Victoria Road North. To give you a brief run through of the content of the report, Rainbow Corner Day Nursery, as I said, is situated on a bend in Victoria Road North, and has experienced 2 significant accidents in the last 2 years. Both of them involved a vehicle leaving the highway and demolishing the front wall of the nursery, which is the boundary between the nursery's garden and the public highway. Both of the incidents occurred in the early hours of the morning, and they involved drivers who were either speeding or under the influence of alcohol. So normally, those type of accidents are classed as damage only and don't show up on our casualty figures because, fortunately, the nursery was closed at both occasions when these accidents took place, because obviously they were in the early hours of the morning. However, because of the use of the building, so as a day nursery, it was felt that we would step outside the normal criteria that we use in order to allocate funding for speed reduction measures, because the increased risk, if this happened in the daytime, would obviously result in a lot of casualties. So in order to apply for the funding, we carried out speed surveys. We carried them out during the time of day that the accidents took place, so between 1:40 a.m. and 3:45 a.m. And we also carried them out during the day. The data is included in the survey. We surveyed 2,000 cars, and yes, the average speed is 22.4 miles an hour, but the range of vehicle speeds went up to 39 miles an hour, and the majority of those took place at night time because it is a wide road. It has double yellow lines on both sides. There's no parked vehicles to provide, a barrier to slow vehicles down. So that's part of the reason why vehicles do tend to speed around that area. The recommendations that we're putting forward via this report are as follows. Installation of bollards, bend in the road, vehicle activated signage to highlight the risk posed by the bend to vehicles travelling above a certain speed, additional chevrons placed around the corner. So there are some chevrons already that are attached to the concrete planters. So there will be more of those, and double bend signs with reduced speed now, and appropriate road marking, including high friction surfacing. This will, if this is approved and installed, then obviously that will provide a very visible deterrent to vehicles using that road and bring to their attention the bend in the road and the advertised speed limit much quicker. There is obviously speed roundels at the top of the road, but the location that we're talking about is around a third of the way down. So it is quite possible that vehicles have either not noticed them or there isn't anything in the direct vicinity to bring it to their attention. Okay.
Is that it?
Yep, I've just gone through. So the finance comments are attached, and the cost of this scheme will be funded from the Neighbourhood Improvement Fund that was allocated out of the capital budget in 2019-20. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Hang on, I've got to read some deputations first.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So the first one is in favour of it. Well, I think we both are. From Lucy Whitehead, who's the owner of Rainbow
Nursery, yeah.
Nursery. I understand proposals for road safety measures outside of Rainbow Corner Nursery School on Victoria Road North are due to be discussed at a cabinet meeting for traffic and transportation this Thursday. As I am unable to attend this meeting, I want to put forward some words of support for consideration at this meeting. First and foremost, the safety of our children is our main priority. We have now suffered 2 serious car accidents in less than 2 years. Fortunately, both took place during the early hours of the morning. Unfortunately, no one was hurt. However, had these incidents occurred during the day, the consequences would have been much greater. The boundary wall protects our outside play areas for children aged from babies up to 4 years. On both occasions, the cars knocked down the wall and destroyed play equipment and toys that only hours earlier children had been playing with. I also have dash cam footage of the latest incident, and the passerby is seen walking in front of the wall only moments before the car hit it, so it is only a matter of time before someone is seriously hurt. These incidents have also resulted in damage to our reputation, and following the latest accident, a petition calling for additional safety measures along that stretch of Victoria Road North gained 6 signatures. I hope this goes some way to indicating the strength of feeling from both my parents and members of the general public who believe more should be done to protect the building and the residents within it. We have these safety measures installed. To have these safety measures installed will go a long way to rebuilding public confidence and to give us the reassurance that the children will have that added protection should an incident like this occur again. It is clear from the footage I have seen that the road is not very well lit, nor is there adequate signage to warn of the bend. So the measures being considered are very much welcomed, as I do believe this will reduce the risks associated with that stretch of the road and the users on it. I trust that the Council will take these concerns seriously, and I look forward to hearing your decision. And the second one is from Charlotte Gerarda. Good afternoon to members of the Traffic and Transport Committee. I'm Charlotte Gerarda, Southsea resident and local campaigner, and my deputation is regarding the Rainbow Corner Nursery on Victoria Road North. I'm speaking for the proposals in the report. I wanted first to thank Councillor Lynn Stagg, Labour councillors and council officers for responding to ongoing issues of road safety in the vicinity of Rainbow Corner Nursery. It has been shocking and deeply concerning that such severe accidents have been taking place around vulnerable members of the community, and it is a relief to see the road safety infrastructure measures being suggested by the Council with the aim to dramatically change driver behaviour in this area. I hope the Council will review the impact on the measures in due course to ensure that they're making a difference and serve their purpose of making the area safer. I also hope these measures may lead to further reviews into road safety on Victoria Road North, and I as well as Labour councillors, have received a lot of feedback from residents, pedestrians and cyclists about ongoing issues with the road. As it is a main thoroughfare, the key parts of the city includes includes key local institutions like the mosque. There are high levels of pedestrian footfall as well as being a main thoroughfare for motorists. Sadly, there is often speeding, dangerous driving and challenges with crossing the road due to the road's bends. It should not need repeated accidents that threaten the lives and well-being of residents to proactively consider how road safety can be improved, especially if residents are experiencing near misses. What is more, with the council committed to climate catastrophes, we must do everything possible to encourage active travel. Encouragement comes from making walking, cycling and wheeling safer and easier. To encourage active travel, there also needs to be a joined-up approach to make travel connected and able to flow. On that, the proposals for Portsmouth Avenue cycle lane need to be thought through, and this is off the point, but I will read it as it's there, properly joined up along the main route into Southsea. We don't want to see road layouts or crossings added without thought about how they all connect. Otherwise, they'll fail and potentially be undone, wasting precious council resources, for example, with the temporary cycle lanes on Elm Grove. In conclusion, many thanks again to the council for such a prompt and comprehensive response to the issues around the nursery. I hope to work with you in the future on improving road safety more generally in the area. So those are the two written ones. Now we have a verbal one from Councillor Susie Horton, who I have to say was the first person who alerted me to this, and I also have to say harassed me then to get something done. So thank you, Susie, for that. And would you like to make your declaration?
Well, the harassment was worthwhile, and it wasn't for me; it was for the nursery. But I take your point. No, I just want to say, and also Councillor Pitt was going to speak on this, but obviously he's had to go to another meeting. So I will. I'm representing his points he was going to make as well. I don't want to go over all the stuff that's been covered, but just to highlight a few points around this, which I support wholeheartedly. And first of all, I'd like to thank the officers for recognising the importance of this particular scheme. We often hear the phrase, it's an accident waiting to happen, which I did hear many times a number of years ago. And sadly, we've actually had two accidents. Thankfully, they were in the middle of the night. And I don't really need to paint the picture of what we might be looking at if they'd been at another time. The fact that it is a nursery, I think, as Michelle Love said, I think makes it an extra priority because of the proximity to where the children literally played and the other side of that wall. So I have been in a lot of correspondence over the years with Rainbow Corner Nursery, and I think it's fair to say that they've realised the demands on limited pots of money around road safety. As we all know, everyone's got a road which they want either speed bumps in or traffic calming or something else. And I thank them for their patience and their cooperation in this. And just finally to say that, that road is a really tricky road. And again, thanks to officers, I've walked it with Councillor Pitt many times, looking at ways that we can make it safer, not just for the nursery, but also there's a lot of older people who cross that road. And it is a really tricky one in terms of engineering and working within the guidance that we have to make a safe crossing there and to make it easier to slow that traffic, but the recommendations in this report will go some way to doing that, and I think it's the best that can be done. And I thank people for expediting this work to make those kids in a safer position in that nursery. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Heaney.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I mean, when we had the accident there the last time, I did actually ask for some figures about accidents on Victoria Road, both north and south, because I was concerned about the whole of the road. And In fact, I contacted the owner of the nursery, Lucy, when the report was actually made public, just to ask her if she was aware that it was going now to the committee. And she also asked about a deputation, so we located the report through the council website, and she was able to make an application, which she did today. And I recognise that this has been a problem, because I've seen this happen twice, and I think even some many years ago there was an accident going 15 or so years ago. Something like this happened. I think when I was a councillor before, there was a vehicle collided when it wasn't in fact a nursery. So it's been an ongoing problem. Lucy wanted to know what the nature of the protections was, and I was able, because I had the briefing, to explain that the bollards appeared to be quite strong. They weren't going to get knocked over by the car hitting it, and actually that was the key thing to stop it damaging the wall, but also damaging pedestrians who might be there as well. So I think it's a really good measure. So I also discussed with Lucy the issue about she may well be having some issues with insurance because of the accidents, and hopefully this will now reassure insurers that they this problem has been hopefully solved now, so they won't get any more people knocking her wall down. So, and I've supplied her a copy of the report, so she can use that as evidence if she needs to for any such claim. So very good that everyone's done this so quickly, given all the other pressures. So well done to everyone. Thanks for this.
Thank you, Councillor Bosher. Have you got anything to say? You've gone mute again. Right, Simon's got a message saying his microphone isn't working. Well, I think we all are aware of that. Do you want to write something in the chat box? I know obviously you're limited, but do you want to say, are you in favour or against or what? Right, what Councillor Bosher is saying, he supports the recommendations, but I have a wider issue. And what's the wider issue? I do love technology.
I think I may know, because we had opposition councillor briefing this morning. Yeah, so would you like me to expand on the discussion that Councillor Bosher and the rest of the officers had this morning regarding his similar issue?
Are you okay with that, Councillor Bosher? If Michelle explains it?
I think he's still typing.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, okay. So Michelle will go ahead right now, okay, and if you can come back in, log off and maybe come back in, and then you can have your say. Okay?
Okay, so this morning we had opposition councillor briefing with councillors Heaney and Bosher, and discussed the papers that we were bringing to the committee meeting this afternoon. Councillor Bosher raised a very similar situation to the one that we're currently discussing at Rainbow Corner. There is a day nursery situated on the junction of Tregarron Avenue, Mansfield Avenue and Dysart Avenue, and there has been 4 accidents in the last year, and that's a very sharp increase. So at least 3 of those.
Can you hear me now, Michelle?
Yes. Do you want to carry on?
Yes, you carry on.
Sorry, clearly the Drayton and Farlington donkey's not working fast enough in the treadmill, I'm afraid. Somebody's been giving it Horlicks. I don't know what Michelle Love there said, but I mean, from the outset, I totally support this. I'm reasonably familiar with Victoria Road North and that bend, and it's not particularly great. I'm not overly familiar with the nursery there, but certainly always supportive of anything that comes with regards to road safety, particularly where children are concerned. And when I was a cabinet member, we put a lot into a lot of schools and a lot of areas there with regards to road safety, road parking cameras, etc. And it's good to see that it's continuing. My issue, to a certain degree, is not with this scheme. It's with regards to something identical that I have in Drayton and Farlington, which is a junction, Tregaron Avenue and Mansfield Road, where we've had 4 serious accidents there in the last calendar year, one of which, and I'm sort of reiterating this perhaps with a wider audience, because I mean, I'm sure Councillor Horton isn't necessarily aware of this. One at the beginning of the year, where a teenage student on her way to college was the victim of 2 cars crashing, and she was actually a pedestrian that was pinned to a wall which subsequently collapsed. She ended up in hospital for over 6 months and is still suffering the after effects. And only as recently as Tuesday evening, that's 2 days ago, on exactly the same junction, we had an elderly lady cut out of a car for exactly the same sort of accident. There is a nursery school on that junction, so it has similar echoes. I mean, Councillor Horton used phrases like accidents waiting to happen, and I totally agree. Well, the accidents are already happening here, and there, for the grace of God, we haven't had a child death. It is very close to Court Lane Infants and Junior School and Springfield, so it is effectively a popular rat run for students, young children and families. And where this one differs from the one that you've got before you, which I support, is that you have lower speeds than the Tregaron Avenue one. You have lower overall speeds, average speeds, than the Tregaron Avenue one. And the one in Victoria Road North is largely predicated on 2 drunk driver accidents that happened in the early hours, whereas the accidents which I'm talking about in Tregaron Avenue aren't. They're happening during the day when there are pupils around. So what I'm really looking for, Councillor Stagg, is, and again I say I totally support what's happening down in Victoria Road North, is a commitment that Tregaron Avenue, with 4 accidents and 2 serious injuries within the last calendar year, becomes a serious priority for traffic calming measures, so that we don't have a repeat of this. Because quite frankly, there, for the grace of God, goes a toddler on the front end of a car if we're not careful. And I'm not being melodramatic. It is a serious cause for concern up in Drayton and Farlington. And I think if we're not careful, particularly as we're into the dark nights, we are facing a potential child death. And that is how I see it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm sure. I mean, we can find the money from somewhere. Don't know. We managed to find money from places on other occasions. I totally agree with you. I mean, that I wasn't even aware of that. So, yeah,
We will make it a priority.
yeah, that's a commitment.
We have, as we know, obviously some budget, the final announcement on the limits of some budgets have been delayed due to COVID response. Those announcements have been made, so we can now use that money for the highest priority sites. And as I said, while Councillor Bosch was trying to get into the meeting, that's an unprecedented amount of accidents in 1 year. So we will absolutely carry out further investigation in the new year and find out what would be the most appropriate action to be taken at that site.
And perhaps you'd like to sort of come in on this, Councillor Bosher, because obviously you know the area well, and you talk with the officers.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I'm more than happy to be kept closely in the loop and meet with officers to see what we can do, because obviously like to move something forward that has the council support up here so we can get it, because obviously it'll have to come to your cabinet, get something moved to your cabinet sooner rather than later that we can all agree on and move it forward very quickly. But I appreciate that we're looking at the new year now. I wouldn't be expecting you to make a decision on Friday next week.
Really? I mean, by yesterday, that's what most things need to happen, don't they? But no, you have our commitment on that, Councillor Bosher.
Thank you.
Yeah. But coming back to Rainbow Corner, we're all in support of that, so really good. And the sooner all those measures are put in place, the better. So
thank you very much. We will take both of those actions forward.
Because they put in a lot of work on this. I know Phil has done quite a lot of work.
He's done a huge amount of work, yes.
So please thank him.
I will pass on your thanks.
Yeah, right.
And give him Dysart, Mansfield, Tregarron to fill the gap.
Well, he's a good egg. So.
He's a good egg, yeah. He won't mind.
Lovely. So right. So I'm happy to
thank you very much.
And now we'll come to the final one, hopefully, yes, which is Clyde Road.
Yes. So again, the speed reduction local transport plan budget 1920 Clive Road. So I'll just run through the report again for you. I run through the report quickly for you. So the recommendation is that the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation approves the implementation of speed cushions on Clive Road. The reason being is that it has a high level of historical and recent non-compliance. The road is long and straight with good visibility and enables faster vehicle speeds. Recorded speeds show that 15% of drivers travel at speeds of up to 32 miles an hour or more, and average speeds are recorded at 25 miles an hour. Obviously, this is an advertised 20 mile an hour speed limit road. In the 5-year period between March 2015 and February 2020, there were 5 road traffic collisions, 1 serious and 4 slight. So it is proposed that there's the implementation of 3 sets of speed cushions, and the location of those is shown in Appendix 2 at the bottom of the report, and that will decrease the average speed along the road. Bear in mind that obviously speed cushions are designed through there is a set of standards for them, the road humps installation standards, and it is designed to bring the average speed of a vehicle down to around 5 to 10 miles an hour while they're travelling over those speed cushions, meaning that the average speed of the vehicle along the entire length of the road will then stay lower as they have to approach and drive over those speed cushions. The reasons for the recommendations is obviously the speed data that we've collected and the road traffic collisions. They're the standard evidence base that we use for speed reduction measures schemes, and it's hoped that once they're installed, that will improve road safety within the area and potentially give pedestrians and cyclists more confidence to travel by sustainable and active methods as opposed to in the car if they feel that their concerns about vehicle speeding and potentially being involved in an accident have decreased.
Thank you.
That's really the report.
So, Councillor Heaney, any comments, any questions?
No comments, questions. Just very happy. We're happy to support the recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Bosher?
More than happy to support the recommendations on that one, Lynn.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you. Yes, well, so am I. So please, yes, go ahead. I accept the recommendations. And I know I've used that road quite a lot, and I do see people speeding. It is quite frightening. So lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's the end, I think, of the meeting.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything else, is there? Thank you for your time, everybody. And this will be the last one until after Christmas. So in case I don't come across you in the meantime, have a nice Christmas, or as good a Christmas as you can under the circumstances. especially now that we're in tier 3, which is makes life a little bit more difficult. But and let's hope.
Nikki's been in tier 3 for months, so she can tell us all about it.
Oh, really? Have you?
Yes.
It's not much different, except yeah, you can't meet people indoors, obviously, but you couldn't do that anyway. And the restaurants and cafes are closed.
Yeah. Yes, it is worrying for businesses, particularly in the hospitality sector. But now if you can get it down. But hopefully the vaccine will come through quickly. Well, have a nice Christmas, and may 2021 be better than 2020 for everybody.
Hope you'll get a break from work, which is the key thing, I suppose. We all need that.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I find this sort of doing meetings and emails, etc., far more tiring than just going into meetings into the civic offices. Everything seems to take so much longer, doesn't it? So anyway, have a good Christmas anyway. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll end the live stream. You'll be audible for a couple more minutes.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, then. Bye-bye, all.
And Peter. And I did mean to. So.